Zainab's parents could barely afford one meal a day, let alone school fees. So when her mother's elder sister, Aunty Mornike, offered to take her in, they sent 14-year-old Zainab away with prayers and tears. "You'll have a better life there," her mother whispered, but her eyes said something else. Aunty Mornike's compound was bigger, cleaner, louder. Zainab became the shadow in every room, always last to eat, always first to fetch water, always invisible unless someone needed something done. But at night, when the house finally slept, Zainab would light a small lantern in her corner and create magic. Bottle tops became earrings. Cowrie shells transformed into necklaces. Torn fabric scraps turned into intricate wall hangings. She mixed glass pieces with beads, creating patterns that didn't exist anywhere in the village. Her hands moved with unusual steadiness, arranging colors and textures in ways that felt modern, bold, fearless. The beauty felt out of place in a world that worshipped loud confidence and dismissed quiet girls like her. One morning, Aunty Mornike noticed tiny scraps of fabric missing from the sewing basket. Her eyes narrowed. Aunty Mornike ruled her household with reminders disguised as care. "I'm the one paying your school fees, Zainab. Don't waste my money. I feed you. I clothe you. You owe me respect." The compound treated Mornike like royalty, so nobody questioned the heavy chores she assigned Zainab or the insults she called discipline. Zainab learned quickly that gratitude wasn't something you expressed once. It was demanded daily, through sweat, silence, and submission. Mornike's daughter, Railiat, was everything Zainab wasn't: loud, spoiled, admired. She wore expensive clothes and complained about everything. But what Railiat hated most was Zainab's quietness. It felt like an insult to her importance. One afternoon, while Zainab was washing clothes outside, Railiat slipped into her room. She lifted the thin mattress and found it immediately, a small cloth pouch filled with colorful beads, tiny shells, and glass fragments. Railiat held the pouch up to the light, her lips curling into a smile. "So this is what she's been hiding." She tucked the pouch into her wrapper and walked away, already planning how to use it. Zainab kept creating because it was the only time she felt seen, even though nobody was watching. During boring classes, she sketched patterns on the edges of her exercise books. At night, she converted those sketches into real art with precision and care. Every finished piece went into an old metal biscuit tin she'd found behind the kitchen. She layered the art carefully between torn pages from old newspapers, protecting each piece like treasure. The tin grew heavier every week. Heavier than her school bag. Heavier than her clothes. It was her future, hidden under a loose floorboard beneath her sleeping mat. Nobody knew about the tin. Not Aunty Mornike. Not Railiat. Not even the neighbors' children who sometimes peeked through her window. But Railiat had started watching. She noticed how Zainab hurried home from school some days, disappearing into her room instead of starting chores immediately. She noticed the faint scratching sounds late at night. One Thursday, instead of going home after school, Railiat followed Zainab from a distance. She watched. She waited. She planned. The next morning, Railiat arrived at school early with something hidden in her bag. When the teacher stepped out briefly, Railiat pulled out one of Zainab's art pieces, a delicate wall hanging made from bottle tops, thread, and tiny cowrie shells arranged in a stunning geometric pattern. "Look what Zainab makes," Railiat announced loudly, holding it up. "She thinks she's an artist." The class erupted in laughter. Students passed the piece around carelessly, handling it like trash. Someone pulled out a thread. Another student deliberately bent the wire frame until it snapped. "This is rubbish," one boy said, tossing it across the room. The teacher returned and glanced at the commotion briefly, but the noise drowned out any curiosity she might have had. Zainab sat frozen at her desk, her face burning with shame. She wanted to scream, to snatch her work back, to defend what she'd created. But she said nothing. When school ended, she walked home with her pride bleeding quietly inside her chest. Railiat got home first, running straight to her mother before Zainab even entered the compound gate. Aunty Mornike was waiting. "Where is it?" she demanded the moment Zainab stepped inside. Zainab's heart stopped. "Where is what, Aunty?" "The rubbish you've been making at night instead of sleeping. The nonsense you've been wasting my resources on." Mornike stormed into Zainab's corner and found the biscuit tin. She yanked it from its hiding place and dumped the contents onto the floor. Weeks of sleepless work spilled out. Necklaces. Earrings. Wall hangings. Bracelets. Small beaded bags. Mornike began tearing them apart with her bare hands. She ripped fabric designs like they were dirty rags. She crushed beads under her heel, grinding them into powder. She snapped wire frames and scattered glass pieces across the floor. "This is what you do with my kindness," she screamed. "Making useless trash?" Zainab dropped to her knees, trying to gather the fragments, but Mornike stepped on her hands. The compound heard everything. Neighbors peeked through windows but said nothing. When the destruction was over, Mornike locked away Zainab's lantern and scissors. Her nightlife was finished. The next morning, Aunty Mornike sent Zainab to the market. Not to shop. To work. Zainab became a load carrier, hauling heavy bags of rice and yams for traders. She minded stalls when owners took breaks. She ran endless errands in the hot sun. Her hands, which once created delicate patterns with steady precision, became rough and cracked. The detergent she used to wash market trays left her fingers swollen and painful. Rayliat grew bolder, enjoying Zainab's shrinking. She would pass by the market with friends, pointing at Zainab and whispering loud enough for her to hear. "That's my cousin." She used to think she was special. Zainab's gift didn't die. But it went silent inside her, trapped like a bird in a closed cage, beating its wings against her ribs. Months passed this way. Work. Sleep. Work. Sleep. Until one Saturday afternoon, while carrying vegetables to a stall, Zainab saw a face she hadn't seen in years. Mr. Dyke. Her old art teacher from primary school. He had returned to the village after many years away. Mr. Dyke noticed Zainab before she noticed him. He watched her adjust a broken earring on a customer's ear with unusual care, tilting her head to check the symmetry, her fingers moving with instinctive precision. Most people would have just stuck the earring back on. But Zainab repositioned it 3 times until it sat perfectly. Mr. Dyke recognized that focus. That eye for balance. That hidden sadness behind concentration. When the customer left, he approached carefully. "Zainab?" She looked up, startled. "Sir? I remember you. You always had good hands." Zainab's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him everything. But trust had become dangerous. Mr. Dyke didn't push. He simply said, "If you ever make anything again, bring it to me. I'll keep it safe." Zainab stared at him, unsure if this was a trap or a miracle. That night, she lay awake thinking. Could she risk it? Could she start creating again, knowing what Aunty Mornike would do if she found out? But the silence inside her had become unbearable. At midnight, she used a broken comb and thread from a torn shirt to make a single bracelet. It wasn't much. But it was a beginning. Zainab started producing art again, but differently this time. Less quantity. More mastery. She hid materials inside empty food wrappers and folded them into her market bag. She collected scraps that traders threw away, bottle tops, fabric offcuts, broken bangles. She worked faster now, sharper, like someone smuggling medicine during a plague. Every Sunday, she told Aunty Mornike she was going to fetch water from the far stream. Instead, she slipped to Mr. Dyke's small house at the edge of the village. He had cleared space behind old books on his shelf. A secret gallery just for her work. Each time she delivered a new piece, Mr. Dyke's eyes would light up. "This is extraordinary, Zainab. You're not just good. You're exceptional." The words felt like water on dry soil. Fear sharpened her talent. The risk became fuel. But Rayliat had started noticing again. Why did Zainab leave early on Sundays? Why did she return smiling, even slightly? Rayliat didn't like mysteries she couldn't control. One Sunday morning, she followed Zainab from a distance, hiding behind compound walls and market stalls. She was going to expose this secret. Whatever it was. The entire village exploded with excitement when the palace announcement was made. The Royal Craft Showcase during the annual IO Cultural Festival. The biggest event of the year. The prize, a fully equipped workshop space, a year's supply of materials, and sponsored training in the city. Aunty Mornike immediately registered Rayliat for basket weaving, even though Rayliat hated it. "You will win," Mornike commanded. "Our family will be honored." Rayliat complained endlessly about sore fingers and difficult patterns, but Mornike forced her to continue. Meanwhile, Zainab's heart pounded with dangerous hope. This was it. The stage. The chance. The moment. Mr. Dyke pulled her aside one afternoon. "You must enter, Zainab. Not in hiding. Publicly. But Aunty will. Let me handle that. You focus on your best work." Zainab began creating her masterpiece. A mixed-media wall piece combining glass, beads, fabric, and wire in a pattern that felt both ancient and futuristic. She worked on it for weeks in secret, pouring everything she had into it. But gossip travels fast in small villages. Mornike overheard two women at the market discussing that girl Zainab and her unusual art. Her face went cold. This wasn't just embarrassing. This was dangerous. On the morning of the festival, Aunty Mornike woke Zainab before dawn. "Get dressed. You're going to Aunty Bisola's compound in the next village." Zainab's stomach dropped. "But Aunty, today is." "I know what today is. That's why you're going. Aunty Bisola is sewing clothes for me. Go collect them." "Can't I go after?" "If you're not out of this gate in 10 minutes, you'll regret it." The task was deliberately timed to swallow the entire day. The next village was far. And knowing Aunty Bisola, the clothes wouldn't even be ready. Zainab left with tears burning behind her eyes, knowing her moment was being stolen. When she reached Aunty Bisola's house and knocked, a neighbor shouted from across the street, "She traveled yesterday. Her son fell sick. She won't be back until next week." Zainab's heart leaped. She turned and started running back. But halfway home, the sky opened up. Rain poured down in thick sheets, turning the dirt roads into rivers of mud. Her feet slipped. Her clothes soaked through. Every step felt like fighting quicksand. She kept running anyway. When Zainab finally reached Mr. Dyke's house, gasping and drenched, she found it locked. No answer. Empty. Panic flooded her chest. He must have already gone to the festival. She heard distant drums echoing from the village square. Time was still moving. The showcase was happening. She ran again, mud splashing up her legs, her breath ragged. When she burst into the festival square, she froze. Her work was there. Displayed under a decorated canopy, arranged on a table draped with white cloth, her pieces shone in the afternoon sunlight like precious artifacts. Mr. Dyke had brought everything. Set it up. Made it beautiful. Her name wasn't on the display yet. Just the art, speaking for itself. People walked past, some stopping to stare, others whispering. Across the square, Zainab saw her. Aunty Mornike, standing near Rayliat's basket display, suddenly went rigid. Her eyes locked onto Zainab's art. She recognized those patterns. Those colors. That dangerous talent. Her face twisted with something beyond anger. Fear. As the royal judges moved through the displays, the crowd's energy began to shift. At first, people had laughed at Zainab's section. What kind of nonsense is this? Bottle tops and trash? But when they looked closer, the laughter died. The patterns were too perfect. Too intentional. The colors blended in ways that made people stop and stare longer than they planned. A visiting princess from a neighboring kingdom paused at Zainab's display. She bent down, examining the beadwork, the stitching, the way glass caught light. "This is different," she said slowly. "This isn't traditional village craft. This is modern. Fearless." The crowd pressed closer, wanting to touch, to buy, to photograph. Traders who had dismissed it minutes ago now asked, "How much?" "I want to buy." The energy shifted from ridicule to hunger. The head judge, a renowned artist from the city, spent 15 minutes at Zainab's table, taking notes, asking questions to the empty air. A palisade stepped forward. "We need to know who created this work immediately." Aunty Mornike pushed through the crowd, her face arranged into a pleasant smile. "That is from my household," she announced confidently. "I can answer your questions." The royal family arrived in full ceremonial dress. The princess who had noticed the work earlier spoke directly to the king. "Your Majesty, this display is exceptional. Unlike anything we've seen today." The judges circled the pieces again, pointing out techniques, discussing complexity, nodding with approval. "This level of skill doesn't come from casual hobby," the head judge said. "This is natural gift combined with obsessive practice." Mr. Dyke stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, the creator is here. She should be identified correctly." He gestured, and Zainab was gently pulled forward from where she'd been hiding behind a pillar. She stood trembling, not from fear of the palace, but from the burning stare of Aunty Mornike across the square. The king looked at Zainab, then at Mornike. "Who created this work?" Before Zainab could speak, Mornike interrupted smoothly. "Your Majesty, this is my niece Zainab. She lives in my household. I provided the materials and guidance. The work represents my family's investment in her education." The implication was clear, the work belonged to the household. To Mornike's credit. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Zainab's voice died in her throat. The head judge wasn't satisfied. "If this represents your household's work," he said to Mornike, "then surely you can explain the technique used to seal these glass edges without cracking them?" Mornike blinked. "Well, it's a family method. Passed down. Can you demonstrate the process?" Silence. The judge turned to Zainab. "Can you explain it?" Zainab's voice came out quiet but steady. "You heat the edges first over a small flame. Not too hot, or the glass shatters. Then you wrap it with wet thread before the heat fades. The thread hardens as it dries, creating a sealed edge." The judge nodded. "And these color patterns? What do they represent?" "The blue and gold together symbolize water and sunset. The pattern references the traditional Io masquerade geometry, but I modernized it by—" "Enough," Mornike interrupted sharply. "She's just repeating what I taught her." But the crowd was murmuring now. Doubt spreading. Then Raeliet, panicking as she watched her mother struggle, blurted out, "She shouldn't even be here. Mama destroyed all her art months ago because it was useless." The square went silent. Every eye turned to Mornike. The judge's expression hardened. "You destroyed her previous work?" Mornike's confident smile finally cracked. After the festival ended, Aunty Mornike didn't wait for the prize ceremony announcement. She marched Zainab home in furious silence, Raeliet trailing nervously behind. The moment they entered the compound, Mornike locked the main gate. "You will not attend the ceremony," she said coldly. "You will not accept any prize. You are leaving this house tonight." She seized Zainab's small bag, the one containing her few belongings, and threw it outside the gate. "You are ungrateful. Rebellious. I opened my home to you, and this is how you repay me? By embarrassing my daughter?" Neighbors watched from their windows but said nothing. Mornike's influence ran deep. Zainab stood in the center of the compound, her heart pounding. Then she made a choice. She walked to the gate, picked up her bag, and left. She walked through the darkening village, past compounds where families were eating dinner, past the market where she'd worked for months. She walked until she reached Mr. Dyke's house and knocked quietly. He opened the door, took one look at her face, and pulled her inside. "You're safe now," he said simply. The next day, the palace requested Zainab's guardian for the official ceremony. Aunty Mornike arrived in her best wrapper, smiling. The palace didn't simply hand out prizes. The queen herself presided over the ceremony, and she asked questions. "Where is the artist, Zainab?" Mr. Dyke stepped forward. "Your Majesty, she is here. But there is something the court should know." He presented evidence, photographs of Zainab's work in progress stored at his house, dated over months. Receipts from market traders who sold her scraps. Testimonies from students who saw her creating in secret. Then he told the full story. The destruction. The suppression. The deliberate sabotage. The crowd's murmur grew into outrage. Aunty Mornike tried to reframe it. "Your Majesty, I was simply disciplining a child who refused to focus on important things like school." "Silence," the queen said, her voice sharp as a blade. She looked at Mornike with cold assessment. "You didn't destroy her art because it was useless. You destroyed it because you were afraid." "Afraid?" Mornike laughed nervously. "Of what?" "Afraid," the queen continued, "that her gift would expose something you've been hiding." The queen nodded to a palace artisan, who stepped forward holding an old photograph. "We need to discuss a pattern. One that was stolen from this palace years ago." Mornike's face went pale. The palace artisan held up Zainab's work beside the old photograph. The pattern was nearly identical. 20 years ago, the queen said, a young woman entered the royal crafts competition with a design exactly like this. She was brilliant. She won. But before she could claim her prize, the design was stolen. Copied. Sold. And she was accused of theft herself. The queen's eyes locked onto Mornike. "You worked near the palace craft stores at that time, didn't you?" Mornike's hands trembled. "The matter disappeared quietly," the queen continued. "The true artist was too poor, too powerless to fight. She left the village in shame. But her younger sister remained. And that sister raised a daughter." Realization crashed through the crowd like thunder. Zainab's mother, the queen said, was the original designer. The gift runs in her blood. You didn't destroy Zainab's art because it was useless. You destroyed it because it threatened to resurrect the scandal. To prove who truly owned the gift in your family. Aunty Mornike fell to her knees. "I didn't, it wasn't." "You buried your sister's talent," the queen said coldly. "And then tried to bury her daughter's. Not out of discipline. Out of fear that the truth would be revealed." The crowd erupted. Voices demanding justice. Demanding punishment. The queen stood and delivered judgment. Zainab will receive the workshop, the materials, and the training. But more than that, she will be commissioned to recreate her mother's stolen design publicly, restoring the recognition that was stolen. Zainab's eyes filled with tears. "As for you," the queen turned to Mornike and Railiat, "your punishment will serve the craft you tried to bury. You will perform community service for 1 year. You will clean the workshop space daily. You will assist artisans in their work. You will carry materials, sweep floors, and serve the very gift you tried to destroy. Not as slaves," the queen clarified. "But as a living warning. So this village remembers what happens when wickedness tries to silence talent." The crowd cheered. Zainab used her prize to create a training program for girls like herself. Girls dismissed as burdens. Girls whose talents were mocked. Mr. Dyke became her official partner and mentor. Her parents were brought to the village and given proper housing. And Aunty Mornike? She swept the workshop floor every morning, watching girls create beauty she had once tried to crush. The village learned too late, gifts don't die. They wait for the right day to expose everyone. Never mistake a child's gift for distraction, because the talent you try to bury may be the truth that buries your wickedness. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.